Hello friends, welcome into NFL Daily presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. I am your host Tom Downey, back with some NFL fan news from those of you over at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. So we'll start things off here with a comment from David Corona. He is our first one up here from today, asking about Antonio Brown and the 49ers, a rumor that I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. Now, here's the exact comment here from Antonio Corona. Now, emojis don't tend to flow through, but that's okay. It says, Antonio Brown has come to the 49ers, which I think is a real possibility. I mean, the Niners have the cap space. They have the need. They have the money and the draft picks to make it happen. And, of course, there's also Jerry Rice claiming that he thinks Antonio Brown wants to play for the 49ers. Now, on top of that, moving Brown to the NFC is probably something that the Steelers would like to do. And here's where the Niners sit when it comes to the need at wide receiver. Marquise Goodwin, Dante Pettis, Pierre Garçon for now, but I think Garçon might get cut this offseason. Beyond that, Bourne, Richie James, Trent Taylor, none of those guys are even close to Antonio Brown. Imagine Brown, Goodwin, and Pettis as your top three options. That's a really good wide receiver core in the NFL. All right, stick with Antonio Brown because that's all anyone wants to talk about right now, and understandably so. Carlos Edwards, the herd AB coming to the Broncos. There was a report that Denver has interest, and I think it's plausible, although I don't know if Pitt really wants to keep in the AFC. We saw something similar with Khalil Mack not that long ago. Now, Denver could have a pretty drastic overhaul this offseason. One thing to at least watch out for here that I think you should be aware of is that, and I saw this comment from Ohio State the Best as well that said, pairing him with Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown just lit into Emmanuel Sanders on Twitter because apparently those two aren't friends anymore. But if that does happen, I think the Broncos cut Emmanuel Sanders to save the cap space to get other players and help afford Antonio Brown. So in reality, it kind of ends up becoming Antonio Brown instead of Emmanuel Sanders, Courtland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Tim Patrick, and then take your pick of the number 5 receiver. Maybe it's Carcraft Holmes or Chad Hansen. So those are the options there for the Denver Broncos. Now, in terms of the betting odds on Antonio Brown, the Niners do lead the way, plus 200. The Jets, we'll talk more about them here as relates to AB in just a little bit. The Bills, I think, make some sense. The Cardinals, if Pittsburgh just wants to get rid of Antonio Brown, who, by the way, I think every single day hurts his trade value more and more. I think it's dropping because he continues to be a bit of a diva on social media. The Colts, the Houston Texans, the Browns, that's not going to happen. The Raiders, and then the Bears, which I don't think they have the picks to it. The Titans, they could be a fun dark horse there, plus 1,500. So what team will Antonio Brown play for next year? Let me know in the comments section. By the way, I'm still not going to fully rule out the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're plus 2,000 right now. I think there's an outside chance that they kiss and make up and stick with Antonio Brown for at least one more year. Now, folks, you can go bet on those odds right now over on BetDSI. Head to chatsports.com/bet. Takes you right to the site. And then use promo code LIVE120 for that 120% deposit bonus. You put down $50, they're going to give you 60 for free. 100, well, that obviously gives you 120. That's just 120%. Simple math right there. $500 gets you 600 extra money to spend on BetDSI, but you got to use that promo code LIVE120 at chatsports.com/bet. All right, Johnny Lopez says AB and Lev Bell joining the same team again, 49ers or Colts. I'm not going to rule it out, but I consider it rather unlikely, Johnny, and a couple reasons why. I think that there's obviously a great chance they both have new teams, but not many teams have the cap space or the need to bring in a running back and a receiver that are among the highest paid at their positions. The Colts, I don't think we'll get to them here in a little bit, actually. The Niners, Antonio Brown makes sense, but when they just want to roll with Jerick McKinnon for a little bit, see how he ends up turning out, their big expensive addition last year. I think of all the teams, maybe it's the New York Jets. They got the money and the cap space to make it happen. And just like that, Sam Darnold's got some real players around him, although maybe some drama queens in there too. Now, Paul Davis, a very astute point here about the Colts, says Ballard won't sign Bell or Brown, so kind of I'm not going to rule out Antonio Brown as a trade chip there for the Colts, but I do not think Indianapolis will sign LeVeon Bell, despite his comments on Instagram about joining the Colts. Now, the Colts have the cap space, but I don't see GM Chris Ballard ever paying big money to a halfback. I don't think that's his MO. It wasn't really the MO for Kansas City when he was there either. Or should say part of the regime there. He wasn't really the GM there. But Ballard has Marlon Mack, has Naheem Hines, even Jordan Wilkins as a third stringer. That's a fine duo and far more cost-effective than what LeVeon Bell would be. You can go invest your money elsewhere, probably on defense right now for the Colts. I don't think they're going to throw big money at Lev Bell. So what team will Bell play for next year? Let me know in the comment section. My early money, it is on the New York Jets. They can cut Isaiah Crowell, and then boom, Bell is their featured back and gets a ton of touches in that New York Jets offense. All right, from Andy with an idea that I'll be honest, I had not even considered before he threw it my way. He says Nelson Agholor to the Colts. They get a good receiver next to T.Y., gets to reunite with Frank Reich, and the Eagles clear some cap space. I hadn't thought about it. This actually makes some sense, though. Agholor has a non-guarantee, because it's the fifth-year team option, $9.387, so $9.4 million salary. The Colts do need another wideout. The Eagles are tight on cap space. And this is an intriguing idea if the Eagles are open to it, because it also opens up a need at Eagles at the receiver spot for Eagles. So the Colts right now, the only guys locked in to return are T.Y. Hilton, Chester Rogers, because Ryan Grant, Dontre Inman are free agents, Darius Fontaine, Zach Pascal, and Deion Kane. Kane was injured, but the other two did get some playing time. So you just swap out Ryan Grant for Nelson Agholor for whatever, a third, fourth, whatever pick the Eagles want for him. I think it actually makes some sense there. I think it's a good idea. Now for the Eagles, meanwhile, this is where things might end up getting held up. And their issue for them in terms of their depth chart is that they don't have a ton of receivers as we sit right now. Now, maybe letting go of Agholor allows you to re-sign Golden Tate. Maybe that's an option there. But Alshon Jeffrey, he's an option there. But they're a little bit thin with Mike Wallace maybe not coming back. Maybe Matt Collins, Shelton Gibson step up. But if not, and if they do want to save the cap space, I think the Colts are the most obvious fit for Nelson Agholor if the Eagles want to move on from him. All right, folks, subscribe to us on YouTube. The link is right there if you're watching on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, just hit the button. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Get us to 100,000 subscribers. The season's almost over, but we're not going anywhere. All kinds of offseason coverage, free agency draft, and so much more. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. All right, from JRO Main IMA, or however you say that. What will happen to Landon Collins and Earl Thomas? Dallas or the Raiders? Or Dallas and the Raiders, I should say. So Earl Thomas first. He has been very vocal about his desire to be paid, and I understand why. Get the bag, man. Now, the Seahawks could tag him, but I think a divorce is very likely here for the Seattle Seahawks and Earl Thomas. And if that does end up happening, the Cowboys and the Raiders and the 49ers are the three that immediately jump out to me as potential fits for Earl Thomas. They could all use a free safety, and to some extent, they've had shown interest in those types of players or in Earl Thomas himself via reports. Landon Collins, meanwhile, look, the Giants aren't dumb. All right, they want to keep Landon Collins. He's a really good safety. Didn't have his best year, but the Giants' defense in general didn't have its best year either. I think a franchise tag, if no long-term deal is reached, makes the most sense. Now, if not, Landon Collins will get a ton of interest from multiple NFL teams. Heck, the Colts could go throw money at him, and pair Malik Hooker and Collins are going to have one of the best duos in the NFL. So, who is more likely to play for a new team in 2019? For me, it's kind of obvious. I think it's Earl Thomas. I think Landon Collins gets franchise tagged, and then at some point they work out a long-term deal. All right, next up from Adam King. Not what I expected, but I like it. What about an A.J. Bouye trade? I could see it, actually. And the Jags, they have to clear money this offseason to cut Blake Bortles and go add a new quarterback. Now, the Jags can save $9.4 million by trading A.J. Bouye. I don't think they would in the end. I would lean more towards no, they keep him. Heck, maybe Jalen Ramsey is more likely to be dealt. Bouye did a good job this year. We know he's a very good NFL cornerback. He does his job very well. Frankly, I thought he kind of outplayed Ramsey because Ramsey kind of went rogue a few times and got beat a little bit. But I think the Jags will keep him. I think the defensive line, Marcel Darius and or Malik Jackson, could end up getting cut instead. David G81 says Nick Foles to Dallas. Look, I know that you say Nick Foles here, but I don't think it makes any sense. I really don't. I don't think Nick Foles will ever end up in Dallas this offseason. It just doesn't make sense because they are sticking with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is the Cowboys quarterback next year. By the way, he's cheaper, and as far as I am concerned, sorry Eagles fans, Dak's better than Nick Foles. Plain and simple. Cowboys and Foles, they don't make sense. Now, some teams that do make sense here, well, the BetDSI odds have some options here for us. The Miami Dolphins lead the way plus 200. the Redskins plus 250, and the Jags plus 350. By the way, Jacksonville, that's my pick. I already put money on this one, on the Jags there, because they have the need, obviously. And oh, by the way, John DeFilippo, the former Eagles quarterback coach, he is now the Jags OC. Makes a lot of sense right there, if only for a short-term stopgap solution. You can bet on these odds over at BetDSI. Head to chatsports.com/bet. Takes you right to the site. Use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. Put down $50, I'll give you $60 for free. Put down $100, and they're going to give you $120. $500 means, hey, you get $600 in extra betting money on BetDSI. It's the best deal out there. Chatsports.com/bet, and that promo code LIVE120. All right, Dylan Atwood says, how about Foles to the Raiders for 2 first-rounders? I think Foles and Oakland makes more sense than Foles and the Cowboys, but there are some flaws here. The Eagles are going to try and trade Nick Foles, I promise you that. But here's the question. Is Foles and 2 first-rounders plus a large contract actually an upgrade over Derek Carr and his contract and keeping those 2 first-rounders? I actually don't think it is. Unless you're guaranteeing me playoff Nick Foles, which you're not going to get for a full 16-game season. Or I should say last year playoff Nick Foles. And in the end, I don't think Nick Foles is worth 2 first-round picks. I really don't think he is. I think that's just too expensive for him in the end. I think you'd be lucky to get 1 first-rounder, probably a late first-rounder. I think a round 2 pick might make more sense and more palatable for other NFL franchises. So what team will Nick Foles play for next year? I put my money on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section. All right, Lateef Cooks has a trade package here, a multi-team trade that I found quite interesting. He says Raiders trade number 4 to the Packers for 12 and 32, and then 32 for Fournette. So we'll break down this trade first. And in terms of the trade value chart, you actually pretty much nailed it. The Raiders' number 4 pick is worth about 1,800 points. 12 is worth 1,200. 32 is 590. So you're off by 10 points. It's like a 7th rounder. So that's a pretty even trade value there for both those teams. So if the Packers and Oakland are down with it, it absolutely makes sense. Now, Fournette and Oakland is an intriguing option there. And I actually could kind of see it going down if the Jags and Fournette haven't actually figured out their issues. They reportedly have, but maybe that was just a, hey, we're not going to cut him, but if you want to trade for him, he still has value. And I think 32 kind of sounds about right for Fournette. I actually don't have a great feel for what his trade value would be. Jay didn't go for much, but I think Fournette's better, although he had a terrible year last year. So I think he'd be a great fit in Oakland, but I don't think he'd actually end up being traded. I think for this year, the Jags will keep him and try and get him back on the right track and being the focal point of that offense like we know that they want him to be. All right, last one from JT Burton says, Kareem Hunt signs with the Detroit Lions. I don't think so. And I think someone will sign Kareem Hunt this offseason, but I don't think it'll be Detroit. Now, Hunt went unclaimed on waivers after he was cut by the Chiefs because of his obvious off-the-field issues. But the Lions don't have much of a need to actually go in and add a running back. Kerryon Johnson, who is actually not a free agent. It's my bad. We'll get that push forward updated for you guys there. But Kerryon Johnson's not a free agent. He is going to be the focal point of their long-term running back situation. That's who they're going to feature. It is his job as long as he is healthy. Now, Theo Riddick might leave. LeGarrette Blount's a free agent. So you could use some depth there. But I think it's far more likely you sign someone cheap who is just a backup than Kareem Hunt, who probably anyway, as long as somebody wants him, would rather go to a team he could actually start for and not be second fiddle to Kerryon Johnson, which I think is what the Lions are planning to do. So would you want your favorite NFL team to sign Kareem Hunt? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I don't want him. I don't want to deal with everything that he brings. Now, he's a great player when he's on the field. I don't trust him on the field. Now, I believe in second chances, but I don't necessarily want to have to be the one to give those second chances. So I'm not all that interested in adding Kareem Hunt. It's a pass for me. I'm typing in N for no. If I'm an NFL team, I just don't think they need to add Kareem Hunt. And I think you can go find a similar back. Ooh, in round 3, just like Kareem Hunt was drafted. So I'm typing in N for no. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section.